Hello. Welcome to the stream. Just gotta turn the game audio on. There we go. And lower it a bit on my end. There we go. Fancy, right? I worked really hard on that. Thank you guys for being here. I have a little bit of an intro to do, even though the game's already started. Bad timing on my part. First off, I have a new emote, in case you haven't seen yet. It's cute. I also updated the sub badges, so that they are also now cute. And also, the bit icons, they're a thing now. So for any of you who saw yesterday's stream, I caved. And I sat down and I made some. Aside from that, a lot happened on last week's episode. People died. We were terrified by a 9-year-old child. With nightmare eyes and an evil laugh. There might be a witch murdering people. Everyone's really fucking sad because people died. And before I go into any more detail on that, it's if you've missed a lot, now's a good chance to, like, you know, go to where the highlights are so that you don't get spoiled, basically. Also, as a reminder, let me just drop the content warning in the chat. I updated a little bit for context. And, because yeah, that's all still gonna be counting here. I believe in the upcoming episode there will also be gun-related stuff. No, I don't think that counts, babe. I don't think that counts. So yeah, keep in mind, you know, that this game goes into some pretty intense stuff, and if you're not comfortable with that, you know, look after yourself first and foremost. Aside from that, yeah, the spoilers thing, that's gonna be, this game is so long, and it's such a long series on the whole, that's true. It's gonna be harder and harder to recap, so I'm gonna make those more and more vague so I can give people, like, warnings, like, hey, if you actually want to follow the story, you should maybe not watch this. Which is a weird thing to do when you're streaming, I'll be honest. But if you don't mind, or if you're up to date for the most part, welcome aboard. I'm just gonna get a sip of tea and then we're gonna start. Just gotta find my reading voice. I still get nervous for these. I don't know why entirely, but yeah. I'm happy you're all here. I finally noticed that the inside of the parlor had gone quiet again. Everyone had sunk into their favorite sofas, some deep in thought, some irritated, some acting depressed. Maria was once again enjoying the TV as if she'd never left it. It looked like she found the commercials more fun than the boring program, and she happily yelled ooh ooh and giggled. I stared at each person's appearance in turn. If there isn't a 19th person, the culprit must be in this room. Right now, Natsuhi is searching the mansion with the servants, right? Then we shouldn't say in this room. In this mansion is where the culprit has to be. After all, it's possible Aunt Natsuhi was behind this. And we still can't deny that one of the servants might be the killer. Anyone could be guilty. Still, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest sure are taking their time. Of course, it's not a small mansion, but isn't this taking a little too long just to walk around, checking the windows and doors? Just as I was thinking this, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest returned. Not one of them was missing. But our relief was short-lived. Everyone looked at Aunt Natsuhi in shock. The talk I'd had with Aunt Ava started to creep back into my mind. The possibility that the culprits had enough in numbers or weapons to kill all of those 6 at once. Forgive me if I've startled you. I brought this to be prepared for the worst. After all, that thing in Aunt Natsuhi's hand was a rifle. At a glance, its silhouette looked a lot more like a hunting gun, but it was unusually short and kind of looked like a kid-sized weapon. However, it had a weightiness to it that made it clear it was no kid's toy. That gun is Kinzo-san's, isn't it? Did you know about it? That's right. I remembered it was in Father's old collection, and I managed to find it. Whoa, awesome. Natsuhi-san, is that thing real? Yes, it's real. It can fire live ammunition. Long ago, Father used it to scare away wild birds. Oh, that takes me back. Where did you find that thing? No matter how much I asked him to let me touch it, he never let me lay even one finger on it. Oh? Grandfather had one of these? I didn't know that. Long ago, Grandfather was really addicted to cowboy films. That generation really liked this kind of rifle. Is that a Winchester? But I've never seen one that short before. Ah, I remember, it's that gun. That really takes me back. That's the Steve McQueen, the one Steve McQueen fired off in Wanted, Alive or Dead. Father sure has a good taste. It is an item the master ordered specifically from America, long ago. As you can see, it is a working gun, so please don't tell anyone about this. He was quite fond of it right after he managed to acquire it. It seems the workings that ejected the cartridges were more interesting to him than shooting it, and he played around with it back in the forest all the time. Oh. Still, it's rather disturbing. Are you sure you should be dragging this out? This is to prepare for the worst. There was probably more than one offender involved. Furthermore, those horrible people killed 6 of us, including my husband. I have a responsibility to protect everyone until tomorrow in my husband's place. As Natsuhi-san said this, she slumped down into one of the sofas and took a deep breath. She had been trying to find Grandfather, as well as check the doors and windows. Since Grandfather wasn't with her, she probably still didn't know where he was. I carefully checked all of the doors and windows throughout the mansion. However, we must be prepared for anything. Everyone, I think it would be best if we all remained here. Oh, good point. If everyone's gathered here, then we can all feel more secure by keeping an eye on each other. What do you mean by that, Eva-san? Nothing, really. I'm just agreeing with your opinion, aren't I? There was a stormy atmosphere between the two of them. If you think about who was the most suspicious from the inheritance problem standpoint, Aunt Ava was the obvious answer. However, there was no proof that Aunt Natsuhi was innocent. No, if you view Beatrice's letter as one of Grandfather's complicated pranks, and think of this crime just as an extension of that, there's more than enough reason to suspect even Grandfather. Also, Aunt Natsuhi thought the criminal was on the outside, but Aunt Ava thought the criminal was on the inside. In short, it was the question of whether or not a 19th person exists. That same question has been repeated endlessly since last night's dinner, with a letter from the witch who called herself Beatrice. So, was the culprit among us, or not? And did the witch Beatrice exist, or not? If you assume that something as stupid as a witch can't exist, you're basically saying that one of these relatives here, who share a common bloodline, is the culprit. If that was too unpleasant, it'd be much more comfortable to simply accept the fairy tale-like character of the witch. A witch? A witch drawing a bizarre magic circle and offering human sacrifices? If I could accept that rubbish, I'd be able to trust all the people in this room. However, damn common sense got in the way. It kept repeating that witches don't exist. In that case, the culprit must be among us. In the middle of this seemingly endless rain, none of us could break the silence. Lunch ended, and the servants removed the tableware and went to the kitchen. The wind and rain neither weakened nor strengthened, and the island remained cut off from the outside world. At first, it seemed as though Natsuhi planned to stop anyone from taking a step outside the room. But when it came time to prepare lunch, she finally realized this would be impossible. However, in order to avoid having anyone alone in the kitchen, she told the three servants to go together. Because of that, the servants were the first ones given the right to leave the stuffy parlor, which had been packed with 11 people. Since breakfast had immediately followed that terrible incident, preventing most of us from eating much, everyone tore into their lunches in silence. "I will wash the dishes so you can rest a while, Kanon-kun, Genji-san. Do you want something to drink?" "I don't need anything, Kanon." "I don't need anything either." "You two must have been so busy and so early in the morning. It's no wonder you're worn out." The only noise was that of Kumasawa washing the dishes, which resounded throughout the kitchen. Genji and Kanon sat in some chairs a short distance away, their eyes lightly closed. Just as Kumasawa had said, those two had probably built up a great deal of fatigue. But that didn't mean they could let it show in front of the relatives. Avoiding that was one of their virtues. After the silence had continued for some time, Kanon opened his mouth and muttered, "Shannon, why did she have to die in such a horrible way?" "Forget about the manner of her death. It was nothing more than bad luck." "You're right. It was nothing more than bad luck." They both fell silent once again. Kanon's expression was filled with grief. "To think that Shannon-chan's actually dead. I still can't believe it. Poor thing. Not being able to see her again feels like a lie. I just wanted to see her smiling face one more time." Kumasawa spoke with her back facing them. After all, Kumasawa hadn't seen Shannon's corpse, so she had no trouble mentioning Shannon's face. When Kanon heard those words, it reminded him again of how only half of Shannon's face had been left, and his grieving expression twisted even further. Why did Beatrice-sama do that to Shannon? If she wanted to sacrifice, there are plenty of others to choose from. Why? Why? It was nothing more than bad luck. If we were less lucky, you or I might have been lying out there instead of Shannon. Or it could have been someone else entirely. Everything is left to fate. Genji-sama, you said the door to Madame's room was stained with traces of something like blood, right? The same substance that was painted on the shutter? Indeed. It was an unsettling mark. Almost as though someone with blood-stained fingers had been trying to pull out the doorknob. No, scratch through the door. That sort of unpleasant mark. So does this mean Beatrice-sama came to visit Madame's room and tried to open the door, but couldn't? Genji thought back to the time he had seen those traces of blood on the door to Natsuhi's room. With the substance sticking to the door around the doorknob, and the marks of something scratching against the door, it had definitely appeared as though someone had tried to open the door but couldn't. How did the Madame avoid being chosen as a sacrifice? If only she'd been chosen, Shannon wouldn't have had to die. Just then, a loud, sharp noise came in from the hall. Both of them turned around, surprised. That's a pretty interesting chat you're having there. Let me join in too. Before any of the servants realized it, Battler was standing in the doorway to the kitchen. Battler-sama, how rude of us. Genji-san and Kanon-kun stood up, surprised, and hastily bowed. But I didn't care about stuff like that. I was more concerned with continuing their discussion. I told them I was going to the bathroom, so they let me go. I thought I'd suffocate if I was locked up in that room any longer. I was about to come ask you guys for some water, but then I overheard something pretty interesting. You don't need to bow your heads or anything. Please, let me hear the rest. That just now wasn't really... I've been listening to you for a while. Don't try to hide it now. So I'll ask directly. Who is this Beatrice? She's supposed to be a witch from a kid's story, but it doesn't look like the way now. Kanon-kun averted his gaze. It was obvious that he didn't want to talk about this, which only made me want to ask even more. While making an effort to smile, I grabbed the collar of his shirt. Last night, this would have been none of my business. But after this morning, everything's changed. Now that Dad and the rest have been killed, this is totally my business. I have the right to listen to this suspicious story, don't I? I glared into Kanon's eyes as he continued to avert his gaze in apparent pain. Since there was a big difference in our heights, Kanon had to stand on his toes and it looked like it hurt a bit. Bator-san, please let go of him. Kanon-san isn't really hiding anything. Then you won't have any problem talking about it, right? It's lonely being out of the loop, you know. When I tried to further twist up his collar, Genji-san cut between us and spoke. In his expression were faint traces that he'd made up his mind to do something. Apparently, he had no intention of hiding it. I can tell you about it. Kanon only hesitated because you might have taken it badly, Battler-sama. Hesitating, huh? Not very manly of you. Whatever it is you're talking about, it's even more unpleasant having it kept a secret. Tell me about it. It's not like we have anything better to do before tomorrow comes. A slightly spooky story might be the best way to avoid getting bored. Genji-san and Kanon-kun looked at each other. Hi Leo, welcome to the stream. Well, also thank you. Then nodded, as though they decided to talk. Understood. Please ask us anything. We will talk. Right. Then I'll ask. Who in the world is Beatrice? All I know is that she's a witch who lives in the forest of Irokanjima. I've heard it's a story grandmother or someone invented to keep people out of the dangerous forest. Is that wrong? Good question. Leo, this is... Hold on, let me just put this up. Let's see. I'm playing a game that's like, some stuff happens in this game. We're actually... This is going to be the 5th episode of me reading this, and, so that's like more than 20 minutes into this game. It's not really a game. There's no gameplay. So if you mind, like, spoilers and stuff, or if it, you know, if any of the content is not your jam, sorry about that, for starters. But, yeah, just so you know, we're in heavy spoiler territory, and there's some really unpleasant stuff that happens. Nothing... I was gonna say nothing visual, but, last episode we were scared by the creepy face of a 9-year-old child. But, yeah, just so you're aware. Also, thank you for being here. No, it isn't wrong. It's, as you say. Beatrice is a witch who dwells in the forest of Irokanjima. Butler-sama, I don't expect you to believe this all of a sudden, but Beatrice-sama exists. She is a real person, the one who gave the master a vast amount of gold, and who worked by his side for many years. Huh? Oh, come on. Is grandfather paying you to repeat everything he says? I laughed like it was a joke, but neither Genji-san nor Kanon-kun laughed. Not even Kumasawa-bachan, who was avoiding my eyes, flustered as she started washing the dishes. So, unfortunately, I was the only one laughing. Painfully. Bitterly. I see. That's why Genji-san refused to mention it. If you really mean it, of course I'd take it badly. So you're saying that a person named Beatrice actually exists? Thank you for the follow. Yes. She has been working for the master since before the mansion was built on this island. She has most likely been working for him even longer than I have. What do you know? Kiria-san's theory was off. Grandfather really did have a confidant called Beatrice. Is that person on the island now? Yes. I believe that she is here. That's a vague way to say it. I guess that means you haven't seen her face today or yesterday. That is correct. It is extremely difficult to say, but, Kanon-kun once again dropped his gaze, avoiding my eyes. Come on, don't just stop there. It's like freezing an inch before the blow, right? I urged him on jokingly again. However, it looked like Kanon was still confused as to whether he should speak or not. Then, Kumasawa-bachan whispered. Oh no, this is gonna be old lady voice and whispering. I'll do my best. One sec. Time for a big sip. Oh, you cannot see her face because Beatrice-sama has no form. She has no... What did you say? Beatrice-sama has no body. Therefore, unless Beatrice-sama wishes it, common people like us are not able to see her form. I've heard that the portrait shows what Beatrice-sama looked like back when she had a human form. It seems he yearned for that figure so much, he would often stand in front of that portrait. Beatrice-sama sometimes shows herself by changing her form into glittering butterflies. on the rare occasion that you spot them somewhere in the mansion, there is a rule that you absolutely mustn't chase after them. It is whispered that you will meet with disaster if you do. In fact, there was a servant who broke that rule and quit because of a great injury. Wait a sec, are you kidding me? Are you all serious about this? Butler-sama, Beatrice-sama has already arrived. Such language may be unwise. Beatrice-sama does not like it when she is profaned. If you doubt her existence, you will surely meet with disaster. Butler-san, you probably find this topic unpleasant. But, you know what? Beatrice-sama does exist. She exists. Beatrice-sama hates people who doubt that. Can't you tell, Butler-sama? Beatrice-sama has already arrived here. Come on, quit it. I'm weak against that stuff. Enough with the cheap threats. However, there was no trace of a joke in the eyes of the three servants. On the surface, I laughed and tried to look unconcerned, but I was quickly starting to sober up. Their eyes were also sobering up fast. Butler-san, I beg that you stop profaning Beatrice-sama. Please trust me. Kumasawa Bachan, who was usually cheerful and would always tease people, now spoke with a totally serious face. Well, even if she says she exists, I don't see anything. Are you trying to say she's standing right next to me or something? Quit joking around. Just then, that unnerving laugh suddenly filled the kitchen. When I turned around, Maria was standing there, by the entrance. But her expression and the feeling about her, her presence, felt exactly the same as the servants. Whether your wavelength matches or not is determined at birth. Butler, you were born with a mismatched wavelength. That's why you can't see her. That's why you can't meet with her. And that's why you can't talk to her. You're the type Beatrice hates the most. Maria laughed like it was funny, but it sounded extremely eerie. It was almost like she was laughing at me, because I alone didn't understand. Do you want to know about Beatrice? Beatrice is a 1,000-year-old witch. With all of the demons at her command, she can harness the power of alchemy to create the Philosopher's Stone and a vast quantity of gold. Grandfather built up all the vast wealth of the Ushimiya family by making a contract with her. Yesterday I read Beatrice's letter, didn't I? That was real. Well, I guess it's pointless for me to try and force you to believe. After all, it looks like you were born without a trace of the sixth sense. What are you talking about? Witches? Demons? Who told you about that? I heard it from Beatrice herself. Maria kept doing that unpleasant laugh. However, the servants who watched over this didn't even blink. She heard it from that witch in the portrait adorning the entrance hall. Maria kept on laughing in a weird voice, as though this was nothing more or less than the truth. Maria, it might be rude to ask, but I'll ask one more time, okay? Who gave you that letter yesterday? I got it from Beatrice. How many times must I tell you before you understand? You don't get it, do you? You can't see it. You can't believe it, can you? Just then, Maria's laughter suddenly stopped. Battler, you still don't understand. Beatrice-sama exists. She exists, you say? But where? Like I said, Beatrice-sama exists here. That's right. Now that I think about it, I've been feeling for a while now that the servants' eyes haven't been pointed in quite the right direction. I'd figured they were just staring absent-mindedly, but that wasn't the case. The four here, Kenji-san, Kano-kun, Kumasawa-san, and Maria, everyone except me, was looking at a spot right behind me. Holding my breath tightly, I slowly looked over my shoulder. Of course there wasn't anyone there. I know that the whole time. However, everyone in the room except me was focusing on that point, as if there was someone there. Beatrice is the mighty golden witch who has lived for 1,000 years. But since she can't show her form to humans of the wrong wavelength, she can't talk to them. And you know what? That's really sad. It means she truly despises it when people like you, who are born without a fragment of the ability needed to sense magic, deny that she exists. You're lucky, Battler. Good thing I gave you that charm yesterday, right? Don't you realize what kind of curse Beatrice would have put on you by now if you hadn't been carrying it around? You really are lucky, Battler. Oh, that scorpion keychain. I thought that was just a cheap gift or something, but are you saying it really had some power? If it weren't for that, you'd be lying in that storehouse as a sacrifice with your face crushed by now. You're so lucky, Battler. I see. So if it weren't for that, I would have been killed by now. Battler, why don't you believe in Beatrice? Even though she exists. Right now, over there. Look. Hey, I'll bet you want to believe it now. Believe it. And thank me for giving you that charm.
Oh my god, thank you, Leo.
I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. And thank you for the commentary. I'm really enjoying it. I can't always respond because I'm trying to like keep the flow up, right? But it's fun. Thank you. If it weren't for that, you'd be in the storehouse right now. But then, maybe you would have saved someone else in exchange, right? Right then, I burst into laughter. Playing witches had been pretty fun up until a second ago, but unfortunately, that last one seemed to be too much for me to gloss over. That is all useless, isn't it, Maria? If that's true, then I'm sorry, but it's all useless. When Maria saw me suddenly start laughing, she stopped. Even though she didn't understand what I was laughing at, she realized it wouldn't be pleasant for her. I thought it might hurt you, so I didn't say it earlier, but... well, I thought I'd put that charm you gave me in my pocket, but I must have dropped it somewhere. So the charm can't be the only reason I'm alive now, and even though I should have been cursed by the witch, I'm perfectly fine. Sorry, but I don't believe in things I don't see with my own eyes. Sixth senses, wavelengths, magic sensitivity. Sorry, I don't believe in fake stuff like that. When I hear the girls in class start talking about how good or bad their ability to sense the supernatural is, it pisses me off. I don't know how much grandfather is paying you, but if you're trying to talk me into joining some cult, believe me, you won't be able to do it that easily. Battler-sama. You guys are free to believe whatever you want. However, when it comes to the things I believe, the one who decides is always me. Sorry, but I can't believe in something as shady as Beatrice until I've seen her with my own eyes. I spoke forcefully and sharply. Then Maria started cackling again. Well, that's just fine, isn't it? Eventually, even people like you with totally mismatched wavelengths will be able to see Beatrice. Very soon, she will revive. Beatrice will revive. Once that happens, she's promised to talk with me and play with me a lot. There'll be absolutely no need for you to doubt or for us to force you to believe. She will appear very soon. After a meal, some people tend to head to the bathroom, while others prefer to relax for a bit. It seems that several people had left the parlor just like I did when I went to the kitchen to drink some water. In the end, Aunt Natsuhi reluctantly retracted her order that everyone remain packed into the parlor, on the condition that no one headed out on their own or strayed too far. In any case, if 11 people are shut up in the same room starting early in the morning, the air will start to stagnate. Also, quite some time had passed, so everyone was starting to recover from the shock of that morning, and their sense of danger might have been weakening too. However, it was a certain fact that 6 people had been killed inside this mansion, so no one was completely negligent. So whenever they went out into the hallway for a breath of fresh air, trying to act tough, they would quickly get scared of standing there, isolated, and would eventually return to the parlor. I guess it's like the north wind and the sun. If you force someone to stay shut in, they'll resist, but if you tell them to do whatever they want, they'll come back obediently. People really do like not doing what they're told. When the servants finished cleaning up from the meal, they returned obediently to the parlor, just as Aunt Natsuhi had told them to, and sat on the sofa near the entrance, patiently awaiting orders. Maria, almost as though she had suddenly finished playing witches, had returned to the pure Maria I knew well, saying, "Ooh, ooh." What in the world happened back there? I hadn't felt even an atom of the presence of this person called Beatrice, who was supposedly standing behind me, invisible. However, it felt like I'd glimpsed a little of that presence inside Maria. You're right. When Maria starts talking about witches, her personality changes. Butler-kun, you also saw it down by the beach yesterday, right? You mean that scorpion keychain? No, I don't mean like when her feelings were hurt. I'm talking about her having a dual personality or something. Yeah, that happens sometimes too. That thing Maria did when she was talking about the magic circle does happen every now and then. It's freaky though. Apparently, Jessica had spotted that kihihi Maria a few times. I just happened to catch it at a bad moment, and was pretty freaked out seeing it for the first time. So why is that? Does Maria have a dual personality or something? Or are you saying that her spiritual sense really is that strong, and she's being possessed by a spirit or whatever? No, I don't think it's that. Haven't you ever experienced it? When you were small, didn't you ever want to be someone other than yourself? When humans are born, no one has any individuality. However, when they reach their growth period, their sense of self starts to be born. They want to be different than other people. But since everyone else in their class is learning the same things at the same rate and being forced into the same lifestyle, of course they aren't going to find anything that makes them different from everyone else around them. Once they realize that, the first thing they do is to start breaking the rules in what's called their rebellious stage. Since everyone else follows the rules, they want to show off their individuality by breaking them. So even those who try to act tough mocking everyone around them and calling them childish, can actually be viewed as cute kids searching for themselves, if you look at it this way. Well, I'm lecturing about all this like I'm so smart, but I actually got it secondhand from Jordaniki. I myself was one of those embarrassing guys who thought it was cool to act like a little bastard. Well, that was when I was at the age where you try to show off for the opposite sex. The main feature of the growing period lies in an impulse to break away from your life as a kid, like a chick trying to crack open the shell of their egg. Do you know what makes children and adults different? Age? Or do you mean size? No, it's experience. Adults can look down on children because children have very little life experience. The reason they snort at everything children say is because they think kids know nothing about the real world. Yeah, I understand that. When you're a kid, you talk like you've got life all figured out somehow, trying to act like an adult. No matter what kids say, adults just snort at them and say they're too naive or that they'll understand when they get older or something. Well, it's probably true, but to a kid it's just annoying, like they're being looked down upon. I get it. It's a question of knowledge and experience. Well, I guess you're right that there's no reason to respect a person for their age if they've just wasted their lives. Therefore, during the period when they try to separate themselves from other children, they also try to take on personality traits different from those around them. And if knowledge and experience is what separates kids and adults, I get it. If they know something no one else knows, it becomes part of their identity. You know, when I was in elementary school, I learned things no one else knew, get things no one else had, wear things no one else wore, and became a bit of a hero for it. I'll bet you've done the same thing, Battler. Yeah. There was definitely an age where I wanted to excel in some skill or other. I see, so that's because I was trying to separate myself from being a child, or going through my growing period, in other words. Good night, Vape. Have a good day tomorrow. Oh, and good luck with the exam. Yeah, good call. There. Thank you. If you put a positive spin on it, the growing period forces you to separate yourself from others, thereby pushing you to gain skills and knowledge no one else has. This is also interesting from a sociological standpoint, because people hate being like everyone else. They try to learn skills other people don't know. In this way, society can acquire the broad range of skills it needs to survive. The quality of the gods' programming is truly surprising. Well, unique personality traits can also be a negative, right? Like if, say, everyone in the class was studying hard, but I was the only one slacking off, trying to stand out. Okay, that last bit really was true about me. It's only recently that I've been able to thank the middle school teacher who slapped me after school. Yike. But, well, I tried to jump over things no one else could, sprint as fast as I could, trying to lap those guys with good grades when we did a marathon. I just felt like doing it. It was in my nature that if I couldn't study well, then at least I could get back at them by exercising. I see, so I really did go through a proper growing period. I guess boys really do tend to focus more on physical stuff. But you know, girls of the same age tend to focus more on mental, spiritual things. I'll bet there were groups of girls in your classes that got really interested in fortune-telling and their spiritual senses. Yeah, there were. They'd come over asking me for my sign, my blood type, and then they'd laugh, like, I thought so. It really got on my nerves. No matter which class you go to, girls like fortune-telling. Deciding whether your spirit sense is strong or weak, what your sensitivity is, whether you can see the unseeable, that kind of thing definitely happened to me. That's because fortune-telling and spiritual senses are things that aren't taught in school. To girls who tend to be more introverted, it's a genre that's easy to build an identity upon, and one that holds a lot of interest for them. Just like how when boys enter their growing period, they start acting tough and rebel against adults, when girls enter their growing period, they start getting interested in that kind of thing. Well, I didn't though. So, Maria having so much interest in the occult isn't that rare among girls her age? Even if we accept that, I wonder if it explains that creepy dual personality thing. Actually, I think I probably could accept that explanation, more or less. As you just said, becoming an adult means gaining knowledge and experience. So, to gain that, it's necessary for children to learn all sorts of things and break free from childhood. However, there are certain convenient delusions that you see often in the world of children, both now and in the past. Do you know what I mean? You see it all the time in manga and anime, right? It's kind of like that. Like you've got memories from a previous life that start to resurface. Like you're being possessed by the soul of the great something, or whatever. Or it could be that a sleeping gene gets awakened, or maybe a sealed power or memory returns. There's all kinds. For some reason, stuff like that's really popular at that age. Why is that? All of those examples you've just mentioned are illusions that let children immediately add to their sum of knowledge and experience. If a 9-year-old girl says she has a 1,000-year-old witch possessing her, then she gains a 1,009-year-old identity. So, basically, studying is annoying, but these illusions are convenient for people who want to brag about having a skill no one else has, amazing the people around them. So you could brag about something without having to work hard or study. I see, isn't that a kid's greatest dream? Furthermore, in their desire to separate themselves from being kids, they always project an image of their ideal self. And it's not rare for that desired self to become an alternate personality. Even you, Battler-kun, probably had a slightly different personality at home and at school, right? It'd probably be embarrassing if your friends at school saw how you were at home. At school, you try to project yourself as you want to be, but home is where you're your true self. So, in other words, I'm changing my personality depending on the situation. Are you trying to say having multiple personalities is actually really common? A girl who's a fan of the occult might say she's being possessed or awakened. Honestly, there are some kids who change their personality so much it's creepy. And some boys do it too, right? Guys who say they've blown their top and suddenly turn into some overplayed violent character. I'll bet they think it's pretty cool, but it's painful to watch. Let's sum this all up. So you're saying that even if a girl about Maria's age shows a creepy second personality, like she did a minute ago, it isn't such a rare or unusual thing? Simply put, that's right. Identity is an important factor when building up one's sense of self. If you make fun of it, it could actually cause children to go back into their shells. So it's important to go along with them, to some degree. Although the broad-mindedness of the parent determines whether they play along in full or not. Aniki, I can't believe you're single. You sound like you've already raised kids through middle school. Butler, don't say that. So, I wonder if Aunt Rosa also knew much about Maria's dual personality. She knew about it. Just between us, Aunt Rosa really hated it. She said it was unpleasant, and that Maria was becoming increasingly isolated from the rest of the class. So, anytime Maria started talking about the occult or laughing like a witch, she'd slap her. And it looks like Maria stopped talking that way in front of her. Maybe that thing back there was just a little game from a girl facing her growing period. Just a girl trying to show that she was different and independent by holding interest in witches and the occult. And since she wanted to be different from herself, young as she was switching between her normal personality and the personality of her ideal, a witch. At first I'd found that very disturbing, but after being lectured by George Aniki, it felt like this was a path everyone walked down at one point or another. I haven't told anyone, but when I was in kindergarten, I joined up with a little gang of kids trying to form an Earth Defense Force, saying we'd help protect peace on Earth. My face turns red when I remember now. During what we called battle practice, we would chant EDF, EDF. Just like usual, Maria was relaxing, immersed in the TV, ooh-oohing and laughing just like any girl her age. Is that a bad thing? Oh no! I did not know that. That is very much the opposite of an Earth, like a peace. We're gonna protect the Earth's peace. Oh, well that's good, but it's still a little too close for comfort. But now I know that, and knowing is... I can't remember the quote. It's like the gift thing, right? From the American show. I'm rambling. Don't worry about it. That's true. Letters are hard, and there's so many in this book, visual novel. There have been a lot of... That's why I'm taking a break now, actually, also. Looks like I could have just, yeah, glossed over that. But there have been a lot of really tricky sentences in this part so far, and I keep stumbling my words, and oof. I'm doing my best, but damn. Just drinking some water and stuff, and then I'm gonna continue. But yes, I actually have never heard of that, but it's good to know about stuff like that so you can avoid it like the plague. And all this witch talk is actually really interesting, because I see a lot of people like on the internet talk about how it's like a whole thing. Creepy young girls are supernatural. That's still a thing. Like, this game is like more than 12 years old at this point. It's 13 years old. And that's still like a whole thing. That's interesting. Hell, I was just talking about astrology yesterday with people. Anyway. Okay, I'm focus restored, I think, maybe a little bit. I will take a proper break soon, but yeah, I think I can manage a little more. But on the inside, another personality, that of the ideal which she respected and blindly accepted, was sleeping. But that wasn't anything extraordinary. It was perfectly natural for a girl of her age. I've calmed down a little. The shock from my bizarre experience in the kitchen just now is fading away. If I hadn't talked to Aniki and Jessica, I might still be frightened by the idea that an invisible witch is standing right behind me. However, can I really accept that as an explanation for what happened back there? If it had been Maria, I could have explained it as the fickle delusions of a growing girl. But Genji-san, Kanokun, and Kumasawa-bachan had also been there. None of them had denied what Maria said. They silently accepted that Beatrice exists. I was starting to feel a little uneasy. Aunt Ava's position was that no 19th person existed. That the crime was an inside job tied to the family quarrels. On the other hand, Aunt Natsu's position was that the culprit was hiding somewhere outside the mansion. So, she rejected the possibility of an inside job and supported the idea that a 19th person existed. And in the kitchen, Maria and the servants had also supported the idea of a 19th person. But according to them, this 19th person isn't human. They said it was an invisible witch carrying out some mysterious plan. Is there a 19th person or not? And is the culprit human or a witch? For some reason, I couldn't just laugh off any of those possibilities. Not even the most ridiculous story about the witch. Jessica, all I know about the story of the witch is that the adults made it up to keep the kids too scared to enter the forest. But is the story different here in the mansion? I feel the same way you do, okay? I think it was just a stupid ghost story that parents made up so their kids would listen to them. But I can't deny that the atmosphere inside the mansion makes it a little hard to say it out loud. After all, grandfather has proclaimed that Beatrice exists, and because of their position, the servants can't doubt that. Even Uncle Krause and Aunt Natsu don't want to get into a fight with him, so on the surface, they go along with it. So it's probably fair to say that doubting the existence of Beatrice is taboo to those who live and work in this mansion. Unlike the rest of us, who only come here once a year. Is that right? Jessica took a deep breath in admiration. It looked like Aniki had guessed right. It's just like you say. No one really believes it on the inside. But on the outside, they accept that she exists. See, it's just like the way some people are about God. Even if they know God doesn't exist, they feel it would be uncouth if they actually said it out loud. How do you think the servants feel about it? Are they just going along with it because grandfather, their employer, says that she exists? Well, I don't really know the details, but between the servants, the story about Beatrice has been treated like a sort of ghost story. Remember yesterday when Shannon was talking to us down by the beach? That story about how one night when she was doing the rounds in the mansion, she saw something unsettling? She did say something like that, didn't she? Back then, I thought she was just being really nice to help improve Maria's mood. But it felt like she was serious when she said it. That's right, she definitely said it. She definitely said the same kind of thing that Genji and the rest had all unanimously declared back in the kitchen. In addition, some servants have also seen will-o'-the-wisps and glittering butterflies dancing around. Kanun-kun also saw something like that when he went patrolling one night. And recently, if you often hear servants talking about strange footsteps heard inside the mansion near midnight. We've whispered together that the Beatrice Sam in the portrait sometimes makes herself invisible and walks through the mansion. It happened a while ago, but even I have heard footsteps while patrolling at night that resemble these stories. That's right, she definitely said that. Exactly the same thing that I'd been told just now. Ah, but there's nothing to be afraid of. Beatrice Sama is another ruler of this mansion, separate from the master. So there's no need to be unnaturally afraid. If you respect her, I hear she won't do anything bad. However, she can be quite terrifying if you don't respect her, right? Correct. I heard that just before I began working here. Someone who spoke badly about Beatrice Sama fell down the stairs and quit after receiving a large injury to their back. Because of that, there was a rumor between the servants that Beatrice Sama's anger had been brought down upon this person. If you don't respect her, you'll suffer her wrath and get hurt. So, to the servants, Beatrice's existence is just as credible as the story that, if you pull pranks on Inari-san, you'll receive Kitsune-sama's curse. Of course, even though everyone accepts that curses and the like don't exist in the modern era, people are still afraid, and still have a little respect for them. You often see it when in a residential area someone is building a house, and they call a Shinto priest for a ceremony to honor the god of that plot of land. You might think that was just a big waste of time and money, but it is said that if the workers don't do that, a big accident will occur, so they never neglect to do it. You also hear about how, if an Inari shrine is carelessly removed during a town replanning, there'd be a curse by Kitsune-sama. I think I might have read somewhere that when the occupying forces were trying to expand an airport, they tried to remove an Inari-sama that was in the way, and the workers kept getting struck down by mysterious fevers. Even in modern cities like Tokyo, it wasn't rare to see modern buildings packed all around an old Inari shrine, leaving the shrine itself untouched. And this wasn't limited to Japan. It's probably similar to how foreigners baptize babies. If I remember right, by Christian doctrine, if unbaptized souls have even the slightest amount of sin, they will still go to hell. Putting water on a child's forehead doesn't do anything but make them cry. But if by doing that, parents can prevent their children from going to hell, they will happily go through with that ceremony. In short, even in this modern society of reason, we were still unable to throw away every trace of belief and fear. You could even say that we accept certain sorts of supernatural things, though in a passive way. Maybe the only difference on this island is that Beatrice is the object of that worship. So, in other words, if anything happens that doesn't seem explainable in human terms, it's called the work of Beatrice. I think Shannon-chan said it herself. Windows and doors and locks that were tightly shut would be open the next time you went to check them. Lights that should have been on and went out, and lights that should have been out were turned on. And if I remember, even Jessica was joking about it, saying it was also the work of Beatrice when she couldn't find her bag in the morning. Your memory's pretty good. Normally you'd say some little imp took them, but on this island, it's Beatrice. Well, it's all pretty stupid though. This mansion has been standing for about 30 years by now, hasn't it? It's natural for things that old to get their fair share of ghost and occult stories. Like the 7 mysteries at a school. But that's where I'll spin the chessboard around. Huh? Simply put, on this island, there's a rule that Beatrice gets blamed for anything that couldn't have been done by humans. Things that humans can't do. How many humans are here? 18. In other words, the culprit is using the rules of this island to make it look like a witch committed this crime. Which proves that they desperately want us to think a 19th person did it. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. What do you mean you don't like it? Let's assume some invisible 19th person exists and wants people to know they exist. If it were me, I'd do it with even more perfect timing. What do you mean by perfect timing? Well, the crime took place sometime between the middle of the night and dawn, right? We had some people who were talking together until the middle of the night, some people on night shifts, and some people who'd returned to their rooms and were sleeping. Everyone's alibi is really vague, so there's plenty of room to suspect that the crime was an inside job. George Aniki, Aunt Ava probably told you too, right? That there's a good chance this crime was an inside job? Yes, I guess. In other words, if this invisible 19th person really exists and wants to let us know it, this first crime was a complete failure. No, in the first place, they chose the wrong time of day to do it. If this invisible 19th person really wanted to show themselves, they had to make sure that the crime took place under conditions which proved that the remaining 12 people were all innocent. As long as there's a single human we can suspect, this 19th person's attempt to highlight their presence fails. That's why, near midnight, when everyone's alibis are at their vaguest, the 19th person's existence is also at its vaguest. And yet, the culprit chose to commit the crime at that time. By committing the crime then, one of the 18 would obviously be suspected. And yet, someone handed Maria the letter and called themselves a witch, even though everyone denies they did it. In other words, you're trying to say that one of the 18 is trying to make it look like a 19th person called Beatrice exists? That's a pretty crazy idea. I think Mom's theory about someone hiding outside the mansion is a bit more credible. Battler, don't tell me you actually think someone in this room is the culprit. I do. Someone's trying to force us to accept that Beatrice exists. That's right, this whole thing started as far back as the letter last night. I don't have any basis or proof. But with the chessboard turned around, this is my best guess. Seriously, that's too crazy. You sure you haven't been reading too many weird detective novels? However, it is an angle we can't ignore. Whether there's a 19th person or not, the culprit's definitely planning something involving the rule about this island. Just now, listening to Battlecun talk, I remembered something that's a little disturbing. Something disturbing? Yes. Do you remember Beatrice's letter? It said that Beatrice was going to collect interest. And by interest, it mentioned everything of the Ushiromiya family. Jessica and I thought back on what Maria had read aloud the previous night. Yeah, it said that. It definitely said that. That the collection of the interest was going to take place shortly. But if the riddle of the gold could be solved, she'd lose that right. Grandfather received the gold and rebuilt the Ushiromiya family. In other words, according to Beatrice, everything created using the gold as capital counts as part of the interest, which means... It's pretty scary for a joke, Aniki. You don't mean everything of the Ushiromiya family. In other words, everything that grandfather gave birth to. In other words, everyone with grandfather's blood flowing through their veins? If you interpret the letter that way, these murders are just Beatrice legitimately collecting interest. If that's the case, these crimes will continue, because the collection of interest is still only halfway completed. George turned around, looking over the parlor. There were still many people who held the name Ushiromiya. And because Gora-san and Shannon-chan had been killed, we knew that not even the servants were safe, despite lacking the Ushiromiya name. So are they planning to kill us all? But that's weird, George Nissan. In that case, why only 6 people? They should have been able to kill a lot more. At worst, it should have been possible for them to assault everyone while they were sleeping and kill them in a single night. Why didn't they do that? The special clause. If someone manages to solve the riddle of the gold, their right to the interest will be lost. And remember how the letter ended. It challenged us all to solve the riddle of grandfather's gold. Jesus, it looks like we're finally understanding the culprit's message. In other words, the culprit's telling us to try and solve the riddle on that epitaph grandfather had made. On top of that, they're saying that if we just sit around, they'll keep collecting the interest. I realize this is all based on several guesses that are way out there. But not everything that happens in this world fits together in a perfect line. Most of the events we don't understand are only individual points. By fitting them into a straight line, we're beginning to understand. When the points at either end of the line are really close, the line itself is more logical and easier to understand. And when those points are really far away, the opposite is true. It's the distance between these points that makes us say our guesses are way out there. However, if the distances we span are too narrow, that means our thinking will be narrow too. Is there a difference between making guesses and reasoning? Am I just using easily made guesses to try and force this crime into a pattern I can understand? No, that's not it. When you're lost in the dark and searching around with your hands, what you're doing is relying on your imagination and making guesses. Only imagination can find the points that need to be tied together. Reasoning is nothing more than the act of drawing lines between them. If you can't imagine, you can't reason. What I'm doing now might be way out there, but I'm sure this isn't a mistake either. Only the power of imagination can pull clues out from the darkness. And then I can use the power of reasoning to tie those clues together. It was a lot like the process of searching out an enemy's weak spot and striking. It's okay if I'm way out there. Find a weak point first. Then we can think about how to strike. Right now is the time to find the points we can tie together later. For the time being, I put aside whether a 19th person existed, and announced our theory that the goal of the culprit might have been to make us solve the riddle of the epitaph. Uncle Hideyoshi seemed to be extremely interested, but Aunt Natsuhiko said it was ridiculous and dismissed it. Of course. If you think about it that way, even that letter from yesterday makes sense. That motive seems to fit pretty well with the facts. Setting aside whoever it was that gave Maria-chan the letter. Ooh, the interest exists. Ooh. Even though she was puffing up her cheeks in that cute way she'd been doing since yesterday, I couldn't think of it as cute. If I poked fun at her, it might suddenly transform into a creepy laugh. There is no hidden gold. However, if the culprit is blindly sure of its existence, and if they're trying to make us solve the riddle before snatching the gold away for themselves, then I will agree, it makes sense. However, if that were the case, why would they start by killing those most highly ranked in the Ushinomiya family? I see your point. If they wanted to make us solve the riddle, killing those closest to Kindo-san doesn't sound like a good plan to me. That's true enough. And if we're going with that argument, wouldn't it have been quicker to threaten Father in the first place? You'd think it'd be faster to just ask the person who wrote it, rather than try to force us to solve it. You've got a point there. Still, I think it'd take more than your average threat to make Father spill the beans. Anyone who knows Kinzo-san would probably realize he won't bow to ordinary threats. He's the man who bears responsibility for the Ushinomiya family and all its vast wealth. He's been exposed to many threats and attacks in the past. The family only prospers today because he was able to overcome all of them. That's freaking right. I can't even imagine our grandfather obeying someone because of a threat. Jessica, watch your language. Yes, Mom. In that case, what about this idea? No, wait, is this one also way out there? I couldn't hesitate. Out there ideas are like bows and arrows. It might be hard to hit with, but it's a great weapon, because you can hit enemies far away. They say most people who've died in battles were killed by arrow wounds. In a battle, you can't just shoot off one arrow. You shoot a whole bunch of arrows at once, pushing forwards towards the enemy troops with a wall of them. So keep shooting, over and over. Create a wall as you push forward towards the truth. If the culprit is after the hidden gold, forcing us to solve the riddle wouldn't be very efficient for them. It'd be much quicker and easier to ask the person who made it in the first place. In that case, the question is this all a message directed at Grandfather? In other words, these murders were a threat made against Grandfather. If he didn't tell the culprit where the gold was, his family members would be killed off, one by one. What if we weren't the only ones being forced to solve this riddle? What if Grandfather was too? If you think about it that way, it explains Grandfather's mysterious disappearance. If the culprit has already attacked Grandfather, then judging by the state the 6 corpses were left in, he should have been left on display somewhere with that horrible makeup added. But despite that, we still haven't found him. So does that mean Grandfather has been kidnapped and is being held somewhere? How could... You aren't saying... How could... That sounds interesting. So Grandfather's being confined somewhere, and the culprit's saying will be killed off one by one if he doesn't tell them where the gold is. It pains me to imagine how you find that interesting. Aunt Natsuhi glared at her, but Aunt Ava just smiled calmly. Since we still haven't seen him after all this time, I think it's almost certain that Grandfather's gotten caught up in the crime. If you think about it, you can't just ignore Battle of Guns theory, right? Be quiet, George. In the first place, when did Father actually disappear? Who was the last person to see Father? It was probably me. This morning, when we didn't know where my husband and the rest were, we discussed the possibility of them being in Father's study, and I went to his room and greeted him there. Come to think of it, I've been holding the key to his study this whole time, haven't I? Genji, let me return this to you. Aunt Natsuhi pulled out the gold key and handed it to Genji. Looking at the key, Aunt Ava giggled. Hey, Genji-san, I'm sure the police will inspect Father's room thoroughly. If there's anything hidden there, it'll just be exposed anyway. So maybe it'd be better if you just told us about it right here, right now. What are you talking about? It's simple. Father's study is a closed room, with no way in or out, except for that key, right? I want to verify whether that's true. There is one entrance to Father's study. What about the window? Any other entrances or exits? There are none. There is no way to get in, except the entrance. You are sure about that? There isn't some secret hidden door or anything? Since Father isn't here, I am the highest ranking member of the Ushinomiya family. I am asking you as a representative of the Ushinomiya family head. Remember that when you answer me. Are there any ways in or out of that room other than the main entrance? As Father's closest aide, I'm sure you would know. Aunt Natsuhi looked a little offended at the part about the highest ranked family member, but she kept her mouth closed for the time being and waited for Genji's answer. I couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Why was she going on and on about hidden doors? You too, Kanon-kun, Kumasawa-san. If you know, won't you tell me? If there is one, it'd be better if you said so. Otherwise, a certain person might be driven into a corner in a second. If we assume that there is a hidden door, then my argument comes to nothing. Aunt Ava didn't specify which person was about to be driven into a corner, but following the flow of the conversation, I had to feel that she was referring to Aunt Natsuhi. Mother, what are you talking about? George, stay quiet for a bit. What do you say, Genji-san, Kanon-kun, or Kumasawa-san? Is there a hidden door, or not? Genji-san, when you remodeled Father's study, you must have overseen the construction. I won't let you say you don't know. There is nothing like that in the Master's study. You're sure? What about Kanon-kun, one who is allowed to wear the one-winged eagle? That's right, I'm sure. There is no such hidden door in the master's study. Kumasawa-san? No, I haven't heard of such a thing. What about Dr. Nanjo? You've had a close relationship with father. I've never heard of something like that. Very well then. So, are you ready? Let me begin. It's very simple. Everyone tilted their head doubtfully, wondering what Aunt Ava was starting to talk about so proudly. Also, thank you, Leo. That's awesome. Aunt Ava laughed triumphantly, as though she were about to reveal a secret only she knew. Natsuhine-san was the last person to spot father, right? I forget the exact time, but I think it was a little before 9 in the morning. Nei-san, do you remember? I ran into you just as you were coming out of father's study, right? Yes, I remember. What does that have to do with anything? And when was the next time you went to visit father's study? That was after we found the bodies of Nissan and the rest, right? Together with me, you went up to the study to report that. And we discovered that he wasn't there. By the way, Nissan, at that time, when you went to enter father's study, did you notice anything? Notice anything? What are you talking about? Come on. You picked up some trash, right? A folded receipt? I do seem to remember picking up some trash. How is that relevant? I got that receipt when I bought some candy at a store before arriving at the airport. Aunt Ava pulled a small bag of candy out of her handbag. Ah, the receipt from that candy you bought back there? But, Mother, what does that receipt have to do with anything? George, stay quiet and listen for just a bit longer. Uncle Hideyoshi's expression was a little strict. Apparently, he understood what Aunt Ava was getting at. It was really just a whim. I definitely didn't foresee anything, or try to set up a trap for Natsuhine-san or anything like that. Actually, about that receipt. Nei-san, you remember bumping into me right after the last time you saw father, right? At that time, I wedged this into the door to the study. So what does that mean? Are you saying no one opened the door until Aunt Natsuhi picked up that receipt? Wait a second, Aunt Ava. Wedging a receipt in would be obvious. It's possible that when grandfather opened the door, he noticed it, found it amusing, and stuck it back in the door. Jessica hurriedly argued back. She still didn't really know what all this meant, but she realized that whatever it was, it would raise suspicions about her own mother. Of course, I folded the receipt up very small so that no one would notice it. But even if you assumed that he saw it fall, you would have no way of knowing how high up the door it had been stuck, right? I checked it, while Natsuhi-san was taking the key out. The receipt was still stuck, not 1 millimeter away from where I put it. I can't understand why you would pull such a childish prank. I'll bet you were the one who did that prank on the door to my room too. The door to your room? It was unpleasant to talk about, so I never mentioned it. But when I woke up this morning, there were the signs of some prank on the outside of my door, with what was probably the same red paint that was scribbled across the shutter. There were some unpleasant marks as though someone had been tearing at the door. Wait, what's this? Why'd you keep quiet about this until now? My apologies. Since so many horrible things have occurred since then, I had completely forgotten about it until this moment. I don't know anything about that. I'm not talking about your door, but the door to Father's room, right? Between the time you confirmed that he was in his room and the time we confirmed that he wasn't, The door wasn't opened even once. How did Father get out if he didn't use the door? I don't know that. That's what I want to know. Natsuhine-san, other than you, who else checked to see whether Father was in his room? Last night, the last time I met Kinzo-san was when we were playing chess. So I was with him until just before dinner. Who saw him after that? I did. I gave him his dinner last night. Yes. Shannon and I were with him. Shannon. I pronounced it wrong. So, at that time, Father was still definitely in his room. However, Natsuhine-san, when you found out he wasn't there, it looks like all ways in or out of the study were closed, right? But even so, you said that you met with him this morning. I don't understand why everyone has become so gloomy. Could someone please explain it to me? Mother, are you saying that what Natsuhi says about meeting grandfather this morning was a lie? Like hell she'd lie about that? Mom's guiltless. Why would she lie? Jessica, I keep telling you to watch your language. All at once, the whole room was in an uproar. Aunt Ava and Aunt Natsuhi confronted each other across the parlor table, with George confronting Jessica. What the heck's going on? Many people spotted him last night, right? But since this morning, the only one who claims to have seen Father is Natsuhine-san. And then there's that strange fact we learned from my receipt. So, how can we connect these points together? Aunt Ava urged everyone to imagine it. Sure, that receipt could become an important point. But I didn't know which other points to tie it to or how. If we try searching for the answer Aunt Ava probably wants, we'll find that Aunt Natsuhi lied and acted as though grandfather was in the room this morning. Has that fact been exposed by a whim of Aunt Ava's? I don't get it at all. Why would Mom have to lie? She had no reason to, right? That's what I want to know. But, Jessica-chan, you can't be sure she had no reason to lie and say that grandfather was in the room. After all, you see it in mystery novels every now and then. That trick, where people fake the time of death to create an alibi for themselves. What are you talking about? I've never heard of that. We still haven't found Father yet, but it's pretty natural to assume that he's already been killed. If that's true, there's no doubt we'll find his corpse soon. If, at that point, the time of death could be cleverly faked, Natsuhine-san will be able to create an alibi. Do you understand? Everyone? This morning, when Aunt Natsuhi confirmed that grandfather was there, she lied. And he was already dead at that time? And then she moved the body to some other location and tampered with it so that when we find it, we'll think he was killed just a second ago? That'd make it impossible for her to create an alibi, even just by staying with the rest of us. Then she could say, I heard someone screaming, dash over there and become the first to find the body along with everyone else. Is that what Aunt Ava's saying? Ridiculous. After all, detective novels are merely books for the purpose of entertainment. You can only think of such an indiscreet idea because you read them all the time. That's right. Even if she did try to fake the time of death a little, all of that would be blown away in an instant once the police did their autopsy. That might have worked in the past, but do you really think that kind of trick would work in modern Japan? It doesn't make sense. You think so? This morning, when Dr. Nanjo looked at the corpses, he was only able to give a vague estimate of the time of death, right? Autopsy results are very easily affected by the environment and individual differences. It's a very relative estimate, with an uncertainty of several hours. And unfortunately, the police's scientific investigation will have to wait until tomorrow. It would be easy to measure the correct time of death so accurately, even in modern Japan. Isn't that right, Dr. Nanjo? Examining a corpse is an extremely difficult task that requires both experience and instinct. I have heard that there is a very high chance of a mistaken diagnosis. I imagine it is very possible for misreading of just a few hours to occur. However, for an alibi, that's more than enough. It's an old trick. It's a trick that works well enough. Natsuhine-san, it's not like we want to suspect you, okay? We just want you to prove your innocence so we don't have to suspect you. What is this innocence you want me to prove? This morning, I definitely met with Father, and he told me to keep the one-winged eagle engraved in my heart. Are you denying that he said that too? I will certainly not permit that. I won't let you deny that Father said those words. Or maybe Father's body won't appear anywhere. Normally, a person has to be missing for 7 years before they're officially dead. Wouldn't that be a clever way to extend Father's nearly finished life another 7 years and keep all of his wealth for yourself? I can't let you get away with saying that. I can't let you get away with saying anything more. I am Ushiromiya Natsuhi. Although I do not have the right to wear the one-winged eagle on my body, it is certainly engraved on my heart. What do you think you're saying to the wife of Kraus, successor of the head, and the one who will act as such in his place? What's this? Are you going to shoot me with that gun? Go ahead. If only you just shoot. You're just desperate because you can't think of a way out, right? Do it. Just try to obscure the truth with violence. You... It wasn't like Aunt Natsuhi had actually been holding that gun at the ready and threatening anyone. But as she was egged on by Aunt Ava, she did hold it at the ready. Unsurprisingly, once things got to this stage, Jessica and Genji-san tried to stop her. Madam, please calm yourself. Mom, you aren't lying, so there's no reason for you to listen to this. Calm down, Natsuhi-san. All you've got to do is swear that Father definitely was in that room. Why are you getting so worked up? That is correct. Natsuhi-san isn't lying. Shouldn't that be the end of it? Then I want you to explain. How did Father manage to disappear from the room? The windows closed tight from the inside. The same was true for the door, right? This morning, if you really met with Father, then you must explain how Father disappeared from this unopenable door-closed room scenario. If you don't, that'd mean you're lying after all, right? How far do you plan to mock me? If you want to argue back, go ahead. That's right, try explaining it right here, right now. If you do, I'll apologize for suspecting you. How did Father manage to get out of that closed room? I cannot explain, and there's no need for me to do so. Really? Then let me explain it. Let's take the best parts from my perspective and yours and come up with a more friendly explanation. I'll believe what you said about Father still being in his room this morning. However, the next time the door was opened, Father wasn't there. You don't have any objections so far, right? I have no desire to hear anything more you have to say. Shut your frivolous mouth. My reasoning goes like this, okay? I can confirm that on both occasions, you were the only one to go through that door. And the receipt proves it. So, what's the answer to the puzzle of how Father left the room? The window. He was sent out the window. Natsuhine-san, you threw Father out of the third-story window in the study into the courtyard. You... Madam, please endure it. Eva-sama, please stop this. After that, when you left and said you were going to check the doors and windows, you took Father's corpse, which had fallen in the courtyard, and hid it. That was probably when you took some measures to fake the time of death, right? This ties in with the case regarding Kraus Nissan and the rest, and also the case regarding Beatrice last night. There's a really good chance we've got reason to suspect Natsuhi-san in all those cases. Normally I wouldn't want to say this, but now that it's out in the open, there's nothing else I can do. Please, Natsuhi-san, please explain how you could be innocent. Otherwise I can't help but suspect you. Why me? Why must I, Ushiromiya Natsuhi, be insulted like this? Looks like we've got everyone's views on record now. It's useless. It's all useless. Aunt Ava? What do you mean useless? Jessica looked up at me, hanging on to my every word. Aunt Ava's expression was confident as ever. Useless, you say? What is? Battler-kun, tell me. You're only convinced it was on Natsuhi because you're only looking at the case from a single angle. It's not like I'm defending her, but that bluff of a checkmate isn't gonna fly. I think your reasoning regarding that receipt was passable. It's not a bad thread of logic, but I'd only give it a grade of 65 at best. If this were an exam, that'd be bad enough to get you extra lessons in detention, right? Oh my. Well, how do you think anyone could break through this door sealed by my receipt and make Father disappear, other than by my theory? It's true that your theory is an interesting one, and if you could say for sure that there was no way to make Grandfather disappear, then you probably would be able to prove that the last person to see him, on Natsuhi, was guilty. However, since there is still a possibility that she's innocent and these accusations are false, we can't be sure about that. Then, Battler-kun, you're saying someone other than Natsuhi-san made Grandfather disappear. It'd be impossible for anyone else to do it. My receipt proved that, right? After the first time she visited that study, and until the second time we visited it together, the study was a perfect closed room, and when the seal was broken on the closed room, he was already missing. If that doesn't prove she's the culprit, what kind of trick could they have used? Like I said, Aunt Ava, only 65 points. So, let's try spinning the chessboard around, shall we? Yes, we shall. After I take a break. Let me just adjust my volume for some music during the break. But yeah, I need to go drink some water and... I don't know. Relax for a second. Reading is hard, you guys. But yeah, I hope you're all enjoying it so far. Things are, heating up, getting a little intense, but yeah, just taking a break, and then I'll be back. Yeah, reading is hard. It takes a lot of concentration, but I love this story, so it's totally worth it. And yeah, glad I get to share it. I will be right back. Alright, back from my break. Let's dive right into some turning the chessboard around. Like I said, Aunt Ava, only 65 points. So let's try spinning the chessboard around, shall we? The question isn't how someone managed to make Grandfather disappear from the house. We should think about how Grandfather disappeared from the inside. The door had the receipt stuck in it, so it couldn't have been used. He also couldn't have gone through the window, because you can't lock it from the outside. and when Aunt Ava visited the study, she checked to make sure it was locked. So the window also wasn't used. At that point, the study really was a closed room. We have to accept this. However, the study didn't remain a closed room forever. Once the seal created by the receipt was removed, it would be possible for someone to escape by the door. In other words, the question isn't how Aunt Natsuhi made grandfather disappear. We need to think about how he was able to escape. Grandfather's study isn't an ordinary study, right? According to Genji-san, there's a toilet and a kitchen and even a bedroom, almost like a little house. For example, what if he was hiding under the bed and the two of you only thought he was missing? Aunt Ava, even you didn't check that far, right? And then the two of you went back down the stairs thinking he wasn't there. At that time, the receipt was already gone. In other words, if grandfather was hiding in this room the whole time it was a closed room, and escaped after letting the two of you go past him, we could crack this closed room right open. What are you talking about? Why would father need to escape the room in such a bizarre fashion? Don't be so absurd. Yeah, it might be absurd. However, it still shows that there's a possibility Aunt Natsuhi's being falsely accused. Your receipt wasn't perfect. In chess, we might call that check. But it isn't checkmate. But the thing that really pisses me off is how you're pressuring Aunt Natsuhi to explain it, then claiming she must be guilty if she doesn't. If you want to go down that road, then why don't you let me, Ushinomiya Battler, spin the chessboard around one more time? Aunt Ava, according to your own argument, you must explain to us why you and Uncle Hideyoshi couldn't have killed those 6 last night, and then casually returned to the guest house. You've been trying to force Aunt Natsuhi to explain, so I'm sure you can prove your own innocence, right? Especially now that all of grandfather's wealth has suddenly plopped down right into your hands. That's right, you're suspicious enough yourself, aren't you? If you say Mom's suspicious because she was the last person to see him, then what about you, Aunt Ava, the last person to see Dad and the rest? Just like Battler said, prove that you two weren't the ones who killed them. Mother, I also think your reasoning was a little overeager. I'm sure the receipt was an important hint. But like Battler-kun said, that's not enough to prove that Aunt Natsuhi was responsible for some plot. We're all equally suspicious. It's not right for only Aunt Natsuhi to be persecuted. Our proud father crawling under his bed. You call nonsense like that an explanation? In that case, why don't you explain first? Who killed those 6 and how? And then try showing us proof that you weren't involved. Cough, cough, cough. I'm not gonna wreck your ears with more coughing. Oh, even more coughing. Milady. Jessica suddenly started coughing. At first, I thought she was just choking after yelling too loud, but before long, I realized how painful it looked. Jessica kept coughing and choking, down on her hands and knees. Jessica, hang in there. Dr. Nanjo. Jessica, your inhaler, quickly. No, wait, I have one with me. Dr. Nanjo pulled a bronchodilator inhaler from his own bag, which was lying on the sofa, and handed it to Jessica. Come to think of it, 6 years ago, didn't Jessica sometimes break into violent coughing fits and have to use that? However, 6 years ago, I never saw Jessica look like she was in this much pain. Aniki, was Jessica's asthma always this bad? It's gotten a lot worse the last few years. It's no problem when she's normal, but when an attack comes suddenly, she can't stop coughing anymore. Cough, cough. Cough, cough. Cough, cough, cough. Sorry, it's... Yeah. Obviously, I'm not gonna cough right into your ears. That would be horrible. Lady, your medicine. Here. Cough, cough. Taking the inhaler from Kamen-kun, Jessica used it with a practiced hand. It looked like her throat would still itch for a while, but she had it under control. Are you okay, Jessica? You scared me. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Beads of sweat covered Jessica's whole body, and she couldn't hide her rough breathing, but it looked like her sudden attack had calmed down for now. The disturbance had made the dangerous atmosphere up until now seem slightly unfocused, but that's fine. That kind of battle of mutual suspicion is completely unnecessary. When you think about it, finding alibis for each other and looking for the culprit is probably meaningless. After all, we're just powerless, ordinary people. And when the police come tomorrow, they'll definitely employ cutting-edge techniques and investigate the case thoroughly, solving all of the riddles and arresting the culprit. Perhaps Battler-kun is right, after all. Just as Natsuhine-san is suspicious, I can't ignore the fact that I'm suspicious too. Arguing about that now will surely be unproductive. Everything will be fine if we just leave it to the police tomorrow. But, don't you want to know too, Battler-kun, who the culprit is? Don't you want to let them know the pain you feel from losing someone precious to you as soon as possible? I won't deny that. Even one day would be too long to let the wonderful bastard who's behind us go. But that doesn't mean that I want to suspect one of the 18. Even though I said what I said earlier, I don't even want to suspect you, Aunt Ava. To me, you're an awesome aunt who's always fun and playful. I don't want to trade insults with an aunt like that. I wouldn't want to do that with anyone here. Right? Everyone? I feel the same way as Battler-kun. It's pointless to trade insults. It's probably just the stress built up because so many people have been crammed in one place since morning. Probably. It is only natural. It may not be my place to say it, but I think we should all relax as much as possible. Ava, I think we'd better cool our heads too. The receipt's definitely a big clue for figuring out how Father disappeared. We should tell the police about it when they come. That's right. Right. I just felt a little triumphant when I figured out that part with the receipt. Of course it isn't fair to only suspect Natsuhine-san, right? We're just as suspicious. But still, Battler-kun. At least the part about the receipt is real, okay? Don't forget it. And try thinking deeply about what it means one more time, okay? Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they planned on leaving the parlor. In the end, it's pointless for us to keep playing detectives. After all, the police will reveal everything anyway. That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game, the typhoon will pass. And when those lively seagulls return to the harbor, everything will settle itself. That's right. If you think about it, this kind of crime is completely trivial. It will definitely be resolved, even if we do nothing. When the seagulls cry, Natsuhine-san, I take it you don't want to see my face anymore? I feel the same. If I remember correctly, yesterday you had some rooms prepared for us in the mansion, so that we wouldn't need to go back to the guest house, right? Those should each have a bath and a toilet, as well as a lock and a chain to secure the door. There's even a bed to lie on. My husband will be able to watch TV without having to fight with Maria-chan, or which channel to watch, right? Do whatever you want, but make sure to be cautious. Thank you, Mesa. And mind your own business. I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on everyone, okay? Because the culprit is definitely here. And Nason, make sure you don't forget to keep an eye on yourself, too. Alright, kid, have a good night, and thank you for being here. Sleep well. Have you finished taking your parting shots? Yes, I'm finished. See you, Natsuhine-san. Genji-san, let us know when it's time for dinner. Until then, we'll lock ourselves in with the chain. Genji, come. Escort them to the guest room. We'll be fine. I hate shady escorts. In fact, I'd be more comfortable if nobody leaves this room until we reach ours. Let's go, George. I'll stay here with everyone. George, the culprit is in this room. Do you plan on staying in a place like that? Leaving the room would be the same as suspecting one of my relatives. I can't believe anyone in our family is capable of something that horrible. George, darling, you tell him too. George is already an adult man. If his code tells him not to leave this room, then it's up to him. Let him do what he wants. Father. Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. The parlor was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find that it was already evening. Had we really spent that much time worrying about needless things? Talking with each other, fighting with each other? Feeling bored, I started scratching at my head when Maria and I made eye contact. I was a little surprised, since I thought she was completely immersed in the TV. I believe it now. You? The letter, the murders, everything. It was all Beatrice. In fact, I almost feel like begging her to come out and take credit for it all. I want it to be the work of a 19th person. Otherwise, the 18 of us will have to keep on suspecting each other. I think believing in a 19th person is better than that. Bringing grandfather outside without opening the doors or windows must be a piece of cake for Beatrice, right? Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head, and then raised her face again. That's right. Locking a door is useless against a witch. Beatrice is a familiar with all 72 demons. The 33rd ranked Gap gives us the power to instantly carry the desired person to any location. To her, taking a person out of any closed room isn't hard at all, you see? Witches sure are incredible. Tell her, if she feels like committing another crime, to do it in a way that no human could. And make me believe that a 19th person, no, a witch, exists. Okay. If I meet her, I'll tell her. Crap. Nothing's made sense to me for a while now. Just when I want to believe in a 19th person, I deny it. And just when I want to believe there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I want there to be more than just the 18 people here, I can't accept the existence of that 19th person. In short, Even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19 people. The number of people in this mansion is... however the hell I would pronounce that. How do you pronounce that? 19 is greater than x is greater than 18? So the number of people can't be represented by an integer. However, it's impossible for there to be anything after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to show the number of people with anything but an integer. And yet, 19 is greater than x is greater than 18. How do you explain the fraction less than 1? It's no wonder. That 19th person was something that couldn't be seen. That's why, since you can only write the number of people as an integer, you couldn't see that person. That witch cannot be seen, because Beatrice has no body. Therefore, she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does the witch exist or not? 19 is greater than x is greater than 18. The witch exists somewhere in that x. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that simply thinking about the culprit's identity would be the same as deciding whom to suspect. It had begun to feel like discussion of the case was itself taboo. So, no one mentioned the case, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So, at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood. Everything was left unsettled. It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter. Ooh. Still pouring down. Ooh. Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this Western Mansion vacation. Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow? Normally, the boat to take them back would arrive at 3 today. They probably sent us a phone call to say that they would come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately the phones aren't working. But they aren't children over there. They were told to both drop off and collect our guests, so they will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Probably about 9, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, who was trying to enliven everyone's low spirits with some food. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was sometimes highly praised. Kanon arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't cleverly arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly. But Kumasawa smiled as though everything was fine. Oh, it's arranged beautifully. Kanon-kun, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shannon-ne-san, it would look even more beautiful. Kanon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kanon was doing it instead. And as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Forget that for now. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced a pawn. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had grown sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request. Yes, I will forget it for now. Indeed. That is probably for the best. Genji purposefully refrained from facing Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words. I wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. I hope that he is safe, but I do not know. However, I believe everything has proceeded as the master has hoped and arranged for. To distrust with that would exceed my role as furniture in the service to the master. Aren't you scared, Genji-san? I am frightened that something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I serve the Ushiramiya family, and that is all. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly be thinking that he'd be left out of this? He couldn't even imagine what was happening inside this mansion, but he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that Kinzo had devised something. If you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game, and as a result, 6 pieces had been defeated. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed he alone was on the outside of the chessboard and therefore safe? Nanjo thought about it. Isn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard, lined up equally without any exceptions? Wasn't even Genji who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone. No, who was confident of his position as Kinzo's only close friend. Just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard? Genji-san, I am truly frightened about tonight. I hope with all my heart that we will still be safe when tomorrow morning comes. The guest room Eva and Hideyoshi moved into had originally been built to house guests before the guest house's construction. So until a few years ago, they had stayed in these rooms every family conference and were very familiar with them. This room was just like a room at a hotel, with a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were still shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlor. Guess it's true that you can relax more when you're alone with your family. Maybe it'd be better if everyone else also shut themselves in guest rooms and locked the doors. Natsuhine-san said that no one could leave the parlor, throwing her weight around. I'm sure no one will be able to talk back. She's always been treated so coldly, so now that Nissan's dead, she's getting excited about finally having so much power. Seriously, how shameless can she be? Come now, don't say that. Natsu-san's doing pretty well. No need to jump on her like that. And about that receipt earlier, you went too far. Come on. If I hadn't said it there wouldn't be another good time to say it. Eva, sulking cutely and looking at the television, sat alongside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed. Still, we haven't been alone like this for quite some time. You're right. Come to think of it, both you and I have gotten pretty old. Since George was born, everything's gone by in the blink of an eye. It really has. I wonder if you were too hasty in having a child. Ava's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she had thought of it as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to father a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsuhi without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. Ava herself had thought that, since her name would be moved outside the Ushiromiya register when she got married anyway, it didn't matter whether a successor to the headship was born or not. And then, one day, she had a heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was the whisperings of the devil that she had listened to in her greed. If she could give birth to a successor first, wouldn't she be able to remain in the Ushiromiya register? If things went well, might she have a chance to inherit the Ushiromiya family herself? When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he had approved of it instantly. This wasn't because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more the long-forgotten thing called family. So when they got married, he hadn't fussed over which last name they were to keep, and had quickly agreed to have his name entered into the Ushiromiya family register. It hadn't been easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter, Ava knew Kinzo's personality well. So by choosing the time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, she was magnificently able to make him accept Hideyoshi as an adopted son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and approved his transfer into the Ushiromiya family register. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushiromiya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. He had been worth their while and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why he had not been permitted to fall in love with a servant like Shannon. So, when she'd learned that Shannon was dead, and the engagement was now invalid, though part of her had still been shocked by the gruesome crime, part of her had also been relieved that her dear George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. I have hated Kraus Nissan since long ago. He was so full of himself, always swaggering around, so proud that he would one day become the head. So I wanted to get back at him. Was that just a childish emotion? But in the end, that emotion guided my entire life. If that had been all, then it would have been fine. But because of that emotion, I got you and George involved. I used you. Ava, don't blame yourself for that. Hideyoshi got up and held Ava's shoulder. She could feel a warm understanding from him. Well, I reached the halfway point in my life long ago. But, you know, I have absolutely no regrets about how I've lived my life. Not one. I think that since I've been with you, Ava, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After I lost my relatives in the war, you reminded me what the warmth of family is. So I'm grateful to the Ushiromiya family, and I think of it as my only one. In this life I've led with you, not a single thing has been wasted. It's really been a fun life up till today. Thank you, darling. Ava hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Ava existed. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Until today, there hasn't been a single day I've regretted being with you. Me too. I'm so glad to have you by my side. George is already a fine adult. Even if I don't look out for him, he's a man who could do his job well on his own. I wonder. Around New Year's, do you want to go spend some time in the Maldives? Maldives? How do you say that in English? If I fuck it up, I'm sorry. Just us. No one else. No way. Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep? None of that this New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I won the New Year's lottery. It'd sure be nice if we won a color TV this year. No, wait. I don't want to waste time checking the lottery while in the Maldives. Then, none of that either. How does it sound? Just the two of us, taking it easy like when we were newlyweds, just before George was born. Yes, in that case, fine. I hear the Maldives are wonderful. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful coral reefs and cottages lined up over the water. Like when we were newlyweds, you say. Starting when? As soon as I finished up some business. I won't know till I ask the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve. No way. Right now? I want to go right now. Ava nagged at his lips in a peevish yet flirtatious manner. The only sounds that filled the room were the distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. There was a knock on the door, and Genji-san entered. Madam, dinner has been prepared. Will you eat in here again? Yes, have it brought here. Is Dr. Nanjo still in the kitchen? Yes. He has said he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move. Do not worry, he is with the other servants. Genji-san is good enough at chess to be grandfather's opponent. I hear he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, right? That's right. Long ago he played against me, but he must have let me win. Maria, sounds like it'll be time to eat soon. But look at you, you've been watching TV all day and you still haven't gotten bored. Ooh, I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine. Ooh. Maria-chan sure is a TV kid. Food's coming, so we have to clean up the table. Earlier we had torn several pages out of Maria's notebook, and there was now a mess where everyone had been drawing together. Jessica began cleaning that up quickly. Still, everyone here really can draw. I'd never guessed. Genji, ask Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san whether they'd at least like to have dinner with us. Although they will probably turn us down. Certainly. First father, now Eva-san. It's quite hard to gather everyone to the Ushiromiya dinner table. Natsuhi felt her headache start throbbing again and lightly held her temples. And, that, let me just say real quick, that's what I'm gonna call it for today. Because this, I happen to know that this is a very good stopping point. Let me just grab this. There we go. Yeah, so thank you all for being here, for hanging out, for talking in the chat. It's great. I love this game so much. Or the story, I guess. Yeah, I'm just it's just nice that I get to do this. Yeah, no, thank you for being here, for watching. I already said that. If you missed anything or want to like see the story from the beginning, check out the highlights. There's a playlist with all of the episodes so far. and those aren't gonna like normal videos on VODs on Twitch. Those are not gonna go away, so you have plenty of time to catch up if you want. And yeah, same time again next week. Schedule's on my about page. And then we're just gonna continue where we left off. Thank you all. Have a very, very good night.